Starbucks is another excellent example of a company that does this well. So the coffee maker has approximately 1.5 billion in stored value on gift cards. Yeah, baby. Physical gift cards and cash balances in mobile apps too. So I have the mobile app. And so in comparison, they had 881 million in accounts receivable, which means that on average, a customer pays for his coffee 8 days, give or take, before he or she drinks it. That's friggin' wild. Prepaying for coffee, essentially.
Is this thing on?
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
You got it, Fat Joe. And welcome back to Run the Numbers. My name is CJ Gustafson. I'm the host of this show, and I'm also the guest of this show. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to do an episode by myself today. This episode, we're going to call it Tales of Cash Conversion Cycle Greatness. It's going to be a bit of story time. I'm going to tell what I've learned about the cash conversion cycle using real-life tales from my career, as well as some research that I've been doing on other companies that are absolutely crushing it because they're managing their cash, inventory, accounts receivable, accounts payable in a dynamic method. So me, my dog Walter are here. We're going to take you through some interesting cash stuff. But first, a word from our sponsors. Mercury knows your financial operations are complex. Founders and finance teams have to pull together different tools, reconcile transactions from different sources, and struggle to get accurate answers. With Mercury, you can simplify your operations with banking and software that power your critical financial workflows, all within the one thing every business needs, a bank account. And with new bill pay and accounting capabilities, you can pay bills faster, stay in control of company spend, and speed up reconciliation. Apply in minutes at Mercury.com and join over 200,000, ambitious startups that trust Mercury to provide the precision, control, and focus they need to transform their financial workflows so they can perform at their best. Mercury, the art of simplified finances. Mercury is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services provided by Choice Financial Group and Evolve Bank and Trust. Members FDIC. I'm getting good at that voice. Quick math. The less your business spends on operations, on multiple systems, on delivering your product or service, the more margin you have and the more money you keep. That's the goal, isn't it? But with higher expenses on materials, employees, distribution, and borrowing, everything costs more. Yesterday's price is not today's price. So to reduce costs and headaches, smart businesses are graduating to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR into one platform and one source of truth. With NetSuite, you reduce IT costs because NetSuite lives in the cloud with no hardware required. Access from anywhere. You cut the cost of maintaining multiple systems because you've got one unified business management suite. You improve efficiency by bringing all your major business processes into one platform, slashing manual tasks and errors. Over 37,000 companies, wow, that's a lot of customers, have already made the move. So do the math. See how you'll profit with NetSuite. And back by popular demand, NetSuite has extended its one-of-a-kind flexible financing program for a few more weeks. Head to netsuite.com/metrics. That is netsuite.com/metrics. Ooh, yeah, you know your boy loves some metrics. That's netsuite.com/metrics. Please do it, guys. I really need this. All right, so to kick things off here, I just want to say that it's not often that accounting folks get to wear a cape, be like a hero of any story. I've been searching for them, but there aren't many fairy tales where a Big Four CPA goes and turns business operator, revolutionizes the collection process, and gets a day named after them in their hometown. Doesn't happen. They don't throw them the keys to the city. But make no mistake, so cash conversion cycle, if you see it in action, and I mean truly ripping, it's nothing short of magic. And I said see, but I really mean feel. You have to feel it to understand. And I experienced the wonders of it firsthand last year. So I'm the CFO of a company where we got our days sales outstanding, DSO, down from 55 days to 37 days in the course of a year. So that was an 18-day improvement, or 33%. And through some shrewd negotiating on my part, we got our days payable outstanding, DPO, up from 35 days to 47 days. So we're paying vendors slower. And as a company that doesn't produce physical widgets, so I've always worked at tech companies, I don't know much about the old inventory game. Our cash conversion cycle was now negative 10 days, which is great. A negative cash conversion cycle is like a total life hack. So from tactical changes to real results, let me break it down. So what's the net of it all? So as a cash burning company, it allowed us to hire 3 more people over the course of 12 months. Yeah. So those 3 people happen to be developers who helped us get new products to market faster and increase revenue. And so tactically, how did we do it? First, we simply changed our off-the-shelf customer agreement. Every company has one, and it probably hasn't been updated for like ever. And I got to admit, that's kind of what happened with us. So instead of 45 days, anyone new was handed a template that had 30-day payment terms penciled in. And so if they accepted the terms as they were, boom, we're in the money, baby, by 15 days. And we'd long accepted that just 45 days was what everybody did. It was industry standard. And it just sounds dumb, but we let inertia hold us back. And we finally said, damn the torpedoes, let's just give it a try. Let's see who pushes back. And so what was the result? Only 5 out of 20 new customers said something. And the lesson was just change it and see who complains. It's never as loud as you think. And it's kind of like you're A/B testing something in finance, even though you're not in product. Like roll it out with a couple customers at first. And these come in like drips and drabs as you onboard new customers. It's not like you have to send it out to everybody at once. And just see like what they think. A lot of the times you can really start to hike those terms down and continue to make it better. Second thing is we started to encourage ACH payments. So we tried to convert customers who sent us physical checks, yeah, the paper ones, baby, each month. We tried to convince them to put down the pen and start paying us online via ACH. And so it was a total pain, I'll admit it. It did involve conversing directly with the payables teams of about 50 customers via email and phone, kind of like pulling teeth. And just finding the right person was often difficult, especially when you're dealing with multinationals who have these like massive billing departments, probably billing departments that were bigger than my whole company. And I'd say half we sorted out without picking up the phone, and the other half we had to have a scary real life conversation with a human. What I did discover was the person on the other side either kicked it up to their boss, which caused a bit more back and forth, like, hey, let me run it up the ladder, or they really didn't care or make a fuss and they just agreed. And so we did have to send over a few W-9 forms again. They seemingly always get lost. If you know, you know. I don't know why. Like there's just like this black hole in the universe for W-9 forms. And we did have to sign a couple papers, but you know, it was well worth it. So after that, we took inventory, no pun intended, of who was left paying us with paper checks. And in the background, we set up a lockbox run by our bank in a central location in the US. Okay, so this is very tactical, but we are located in Massachusetts. Most of our customers were sending checks from their headquarters in the Midwest or the South. And so we actually picked a lockbox closer to them to cut down on mailing float by a day. So it was geographically closer. We notified them that we'd set up this lockbox with our bank, and we provided them a new address to send the checks going forward. And so it meant we no longer had to go to the reception at our shared office space each week, like fish through the myriad of envelopes and junk mail, open the letters and deposit any checks via mobile. And this part of the process, I'll like totally admit, it was a self-inflicted wound. We were determined to rectify it, and like we knew we were coming up short here. If you've ever like stared at a pile of mail and you're like, I know there are checks in there, but there's also like clothing catalogs that for some reason they keep sending to a B2B place, you know how it feels. And I'd also be lying if I said we never lost a check. I'm man enough to admit it. The days of checks are losing over. I hate to admit it does happen, but I'm not trying to defend myself, but at the time we were receiving more than 50 paper checks a month, which was a headache to keep track of and scan. And it gave us at least half a day back to the member of our accounting team who had to do the mobile, sign and scan. And as luck, or I guess just math would have it, the interest we made on the account from deposits, that easily made up for the fees associated with the lockbox. So the checks were getting deposited on average 4 days earlier, and they cleared our bank account about a day faster than mobile, since it was the bank doing it on our behalf. It wasn't like they had to do this verification, like you logged into the account, this is actually you depositing it, let's scan the check, and jump through all these hoops. It worked faster when the bank did it directly. And so that's how we systematically changed our collections. And so what was the result? We dropped 18 days like a bad habit, son. The lesson, never underestimate the power of small operational changes. But we didn't stop there. So then we went on to renegotiate the payables for better terms. And so the next element of the cash conversion cycle we attacked was payables, and the majority was tied up in software we paid other tech companies for, which we used to either build our product, market our product, or communicate with other employees internally. So I'm talking about Salesforce, Slack, G Suite. And so the good thing about software is that you are on annual contracts a lot of the time. And so that means each year you have this built-in chance to play ball and renegotiate terms. So upon renewal, whenever they'd come up throughout the year, maybe it was about 2 a month on average, I started asking for quarterly payments on every software contract I signed. And what I noticed is that the reps I spoke to had a much easier time pulling this lever internally than price. So yeah, I still want to get the best price, but I found that I could go to payment terms and like they wouldn't A, have to get many approvals on it, and B, they were more apt to give me wiggle room on this than they were on price. And so we went from having 80% of our contracts billed annually and upfront to more than half being quarterly, and even a few in arrears. This is like a total tangent, but you may have noticed this at your own company. It seems like right after you raise a round, you end up buying a bunch of software that you delayed getting, and you allow people within like the management team to go and get like their shiny toy that they wanted. Like, hey, go get a PitchBook license. That's what I did. Go get your HubSpot thing-a-majig. And so then when the renewals come up, this weird thing happens where it's like, why are 75% of my renewals in April and May? It's like, oh, because that's when we raised last time. So it's just like a weird thing that tends to happen. The biggest contract I renegotiated with Salesforce, that moved a massive upfront annual payment to quarterly payments. And this alone was a game changer. So a big whack of cash no longer vanished from our account each year. It now went in drips. And remember, interest rates were also rising at the time. Right now, they're still pretty high. But the cash I kept on hand collected interest longer, which helped pay off the lockbox fees and more. And so the interest that year helped to pay for 2 more developer salaries. Dude, I'm up to 5 additional developers. I'm balling right now. But that's for another day. The result, so we improved our DPO by 17 days by asking for quarterly payments at renewal. And the lesson here was that payment terms are an easier lever to pull than pricing asks in a negotiation. Just ask. A note on inventory management, something I don't know much about. There's a conspicuous part missing from this cash conversion story, and that's inventory. So you can't touch the products that my company have always built, bits, not bytes, whatever the stupid saying is. But it's a major component for companies in the world that do produce physical things. And like much like the saying goes that planes don't make money on the ground, I think it was Richard Branson that said that. You could say that clothes in a warehouse or car parts on a shelf or, you know, boxes of vitamins in a warehouse don't make money either. And so I've kind of done some study on other companies out there that do have physical products. And that's what I want to get into next. I want to tell you stories of real life companies out there who have crushed the cash conversion cycle, and a big part of their story was managing inventory correctly. All right, so where did the inspiration for this story time on an arcane subject as cash conversion cycle come from? So I had this professor in college. He's probably like 75 years old. He had been like a lifelong entrepreneur. I always wonder why they call it serial entrepreneur. It just reminds me of serial killer. He was a serial entrepreneur, not a serial killer. And he owned this jewelry business. It was costume jewelry, not like real gold, but it was like Claire's or icing that you'd see in the mall as a kid. This was back in like the 80s and 90s. And so he had a ton of money wrapped up in fake diamonds and sashes and fedoras and makeup, a lot of which would sit on the shelves for months before it sold. And so he found a clever and maybe nefarious way to maximize his float. And this, by the way, was the first time I'd ever learned about the cash conversion cycle. I think this was sophomore year in college. So he actually told us this. He'd write paper checks to his jewelry vendors and throw them in the mail. But before throwing them in the mail, he'd also throw them in the microwave. So the heat would melt the magnetic coating that was used to scan the checks. And this inevitably turned a seemingly good looking check into something the bank scanning the machine would reject. But it would like look fine. It just like wouldn't work. And so most of the time they'd chalk it up to some sort of systems error. This was like the early days of scanning stuff, back when like a scanner was like $1 billion. People used to fax stuff, and they'd call him and be like, hey man, like something weird happened on our end. Can you just mail us another check? And by the time he did that, he'd be like, yeah, sure, no problem. He'd get about an extra 5 days. And so with somebody who had so much money tied up in costume jewelry, and the like, he said that this was his main lever for expansion. I think he got it up to like 50 stores in malls throughout the country. And it was built on the backs of microwaving and frying checks. So another tangent, like I always think that college professors who have walked the walk and have had like awesome entrepreneurial experiences and are less concerned about the definition of something, like nobody wants to hear me talk about like the formula for cash conversion cycle. They want to hear like what it's like in real life. And I don't think I would have remembered it coming out of college if I hadn't had these cool stories to go off of. Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Cash is king. As the CFO of a SaaS company, I know firsthand how important it is to maintain a healthy AR balance. If you can't effectively manage cash, you can't service debt, make payroll, or invest in growing your business. That's why I'm so excited to partner with the sponsor of today's episode, Maxio, the leading billing and financial operations platform for B2B SaaS. Maxio helps top SaaS companies like Chili Piper, Crunchbase, and Stack Overflow get cash in the door faster by automating collections and dunning. Gone are the days of manually chasing down invoices. Join the 2,500 plus subscription businesses using Maxio, formerly SaaS Optics and Chargeify, to eliminate revenue leakage and streamline order to cash. It's never been easier to get paid. Visit maxio.com/run the numbers to supercharge your financial operations in 2024. Not only does requesting a demo using the Run the Numbers link help support this podcast, ya boy, you also receive a 10% discount on your first year with Maxio. Woo! That's maxio.com/run the numbers. That's maxio.com/run the numbers. Ready to plan confidently, close faster, and report more accurately? Here's what sets Planful apart. Imagine purpose-built applications for every department, from FP&A to accounting, marketing to HR, all with built-in financial intelligence. It's easy to implement Planful in just weeks and with minimal IT involvement, so you can rapidly and seamlessly engage everyone across the business on your key financial progress. Best of all, Planful grows with you. Its unparalleled scalability ensures that no matter how fast your business expands, Planful can keep up. See why over 1,500 customers worldwide choose Planful as their flexible, user-friendly, end-to-end financial performance management platform. Oh yeah! Go to planful.com/metrics to see how you can reach peak financial performance with Planful. That's planful.com/metrics. Okay, serious question for all my accounting pros here today. Are you doing what you were hired to do? What I mean is, do you have time to actually be a business partner, or are you buried in tedious manual tasks just to get your journal entries prepared every month? I know how that feels. Leapfin's here to help with that. Leapfin is accounting automation software that automatically prepares and posts reliable journal entries. And that's just the beginning. High-growth businesses like Reddit, Canva, and SeatGeek choose Leapfin to eliminate manual tasks, accelerate month-end close, and enable accounting leaders like you to provide faster insights that will help your company grow. If you're battling messy transaction data from Stripe, Adyen, Shopify, Apple Pay, and other PSPs, and then battling again to get it all into NetSuite, go to leapfin.com to watch their short product intro video. And if you like what you see, request a 15-minute conversation to learn how accounting automation can help you and your team. Check out leapfin.com today. That's leap like jump, fin like shark. I just made that up. I hope they're okay with it. Leapfin.com. All right, next real life company here, Gymshark. So I tweeted about this and it kind of went viral, but Gymshark would run these pre-sale like drops on entire collections to boost their accounts receivable. And they were doing it through influencers online. So like on TikTok, they'd have like a good-looking gym influencer post about this collection drop that was happening, and they'd get people to pre-order it. And they'd actually receive money for the orders before they made the product, which was genius. And so on average, Gymshark was able to use 108 days to sell an item in its inventory, 19 days to collect money from its customers, and 163 days to pay back its suppliers. Their cash conversion cycle was negative 36 days. That's wild. So that means Gymshark had cash on hand for 36 days for every item they sold. So they already had the cash, and they used that to finance their growth. And the cash conversion cycle is the financial metric that really drove their capital efficient success. Amazon and Walmart, two of the most successful retailers of all time, also have very low or negative cash conversion cycle. And obviously a lot of that has to do with their reputation and size. But I'm sure they did probably start out at first with 15 to 30 day terms, just like any other e-commerce business. Gymshark's hack was that they were using influencers and doing like these pre-drop type things online, and they were creating a sense of urgency. The other thing they did is they cut out a lot of the middlemen. So it wasn't like they were then selling Gymshark directly. Sorry, it wasn't like they were selling the Gymshark clothes to like, like a clothing outlet on, like with brick and mortar stores who then resold it on their behalf, like a clothing wholesaler. They would sell it direct to consumer. That also helped. I want to give an example of like why this would be powerful with clothing. So typical e-commerce businesses I've come across have a cash conversion cycle between 40 and 100 days, not stellar, right? So that means there's always 40 to 100 days of literally like cash stuck in working capital. And as your business grows, the cash that is stuck will grow as well, meaning you'll need to continue to invest new cash into the business. So you can quite literally like kill your business by growing it into the ground when you have physical stuff. And so to give you an example, let's say your cash conversion cycle is 60 days and you're selling $5,000 worth a day of like spandex. That means there's $300,000 worth of cash always locked inside your business, right? It's kind of like you're fronting that cash. If your sales increase to $10,000 a day, that sounds like a freaking amazing problem, right? No, that amount locked inside your business is now $600K, and you'll need to invest $300,000 more into the business to grow. So you can see how growth can actually spell death if you manage your cash conversion cycle wrong. The next company I want to talk about is one that I frequent. It's Starbucks. I know I say I'm sponsored by Dunkin', but sometimes I need that extra kick. Also, Dunkin' doesn't officially sponsor us. They just, they live rent-free in my head. Starbucks is another excellent example of a company that does this well. So the coffee maker has approximately $1.5 billion in stored value on gift cards. Yeah, baby. Physical gift cards and cash balances in mobile apps too. So I have the mobile app. And so in comparison, they had $881 million in accounts receivable, which means that on average, a customer pays for his coffee 8 days, give or take, before he or she drinks it. That's friggin' wild. Prepaying for coffee, essentially. And if you think about it, Starbucks is reinvesting money from gift cards into the business through interest-free loans. So customers can load money onto their gift cards in the Starbucks app, which then acts as a loan to the company. Starbucks doesn't pay interest on that money, so it's effectively borrowing cash at a negative 10%-ish interest rate. And by the way, they also receive about $155 million every year from unredeemed balances. The fancy word for that, I think, is called breakage. Like you lose the gift card, you give it to someone, they never use it. Let's put that in a perspective. So Walmart, for example, does 20 times as much in sales as Starbucks. They're 20 times as large from a top line perspective. So they do $500 billion in revenue versus Starbucks is 25. But Walmart has a similar gift card amount of 1.9 billion in its bank account. So Starbucks is like truly the king of gift cards. Let me take you through what it looks like. So the days inventory outstanding, Starbucks has like really fast inventory turnover because it's food, it's perishable. So the days inventory outstanding for Starbucks is typically in the range of 30 to 40 days. Pause though. That is kind of gross though. If they had like a breakfast sandwich for like 30, 40 days and it was freeze dried, I really hope that's not happening. Coffee beans do last a bit longer. Days sales outstanding, that's pretty low. Most transactions made in cash through credit card payments. And like we said, they're kind of prepaying for it if you're using a gift card. They are prepaying for it. It's less than 5 to 10 days if you're using a credit card payment. It's pretty much instant. And days payable outstanding, they manage their supplier payments pretty strategically, often extending payment terms to optimize the cash flow, especially since they're buying a ton of stuff. So through volume, they can get their days payable outstanding to around 40 to 50 days. So I had done the old math, and Starbucks' cash conversion cycle is negative 3 days. That's awesome. And it wouldn't be possible without this gift card program. It's a major financial asset for the company. Immediate cash flows, low days sales outstanding, operational flexibility. Boom. Gift cards, baby. The future is once plastics. Now it's gift cards. It's plastic gift cards. Oh, and mobile gift cards. All right. Next company, Chewy. Chewy. Dog food. Chewy has an amazing cash conversion cycle because they've created a subscription model in a traditional e-commerce business. They have what's called an auto ship program, and it's one of the key elements of their business model. So it allows customers to essentially schedule regular deliveries of pet foods and other supplies, like big dog got to eat, right, Walter? It provides Chewy with a predictable and recurring revenue stream, but it also enables the company to manage inventory and cash flow better. And the customers pay in advance for these subscriptions. So they pay at the start of each month. That is awesome. So they get the cash and then they can use it to buy better inventory. They've also optimized their inventory management process. They're like really a tech company that sells dog food. They're not a dog food company that uses tech. They're super dialed in on these systems and logistics, with bringing that food to market. And they use advanced forecasting algorithms. So they use machine learning algorithms, whatever that means, to predict customer demand with better accuracy. And so like if they don't have it sitting on the shelf as long, and then they're also getting prepaid through this auto ship program, that's a great cash conversion cycle. And I mentioned this with Starbucks, but like because they're buying such a large amount of dog food, they can get bulk ordering discounts. And not only can you get pricing discounts, but you can also pay your suppliers later. So 60 to 90 days after receiving inventory. And then one other thing, the credit card processing, like I said, that's a great way to get paid instead of paper checks because it's immediate. So combining immediate payment processing and the subscription prepayments, that is killer. Something else I noticed they do flash sales and promotions. That's probably because they have food that's they know will expire like within a short period of time. That's designed to clear out older stock and make room for new products, and that will reduce your days inventory outstanding. And like they know about your dog based on what you're ordering, so they can use personalized marketing to recommend and target offers that will probably increase the conversion rate for inventory into sales faster. So that helps with the sales cycle. And I learned a new word. It's called cross-docking. So that's basically, I'm going to explain this in like such stupid terms, but picture like two 18-wheelers pulling up to a warehouse. A lot of times what they'll do is instead of like taking the food off one and putting it in the warehouse and organizing it there, they have them show up at the same time. So it doesn't even go in the warehouse. It's like they carry the dog food from one 18-wheeler to another. And that reduces the need for warehousing and speeds up the distribution process. Woo-wee, we're on a roll. Okay, another hero of the cash conversion cycle here. Ferrari. Their production process is highly customized. So most of the cars are tailored to whatever the person wanted to order. And that makes it so there's very little possibility of having unsold inventory because like each thing is bespoke to what that person wants. So that decreases their days inventory outstanding. They also have their customers prepay at least half up front. So they make significant deposits. This helps them get the cash to pay for the parts that they then create into a custom car. And then they require full payment prior to the delivery. So before the truck goes to drop it off, you got to pay in full. Cut the check, baby. This all has the impact of reducing their days sales outstanding with the prepayments, collecting half the cash up front, half later. They have improved cash flow and liquidity for the whole production process, which uses just-in-time inventory, and it reduces their need for external financing. So they've historically been a company that has not needed a lot of outside capital. And mitigation of financial risk. So I wanted to just touch on this for a second because like as a CFO or person who's thinking about the value of your inventory, because these are all personalized, like you don't want to have like a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 like beast sitting on your hands that's not purchased. And because you're making it custom for someone, that mitigates the risk of building and selling a very expensive item. Customer commitment goes a long way. Prepayments, once again, a big part of this story. Get that cash. All right. The last hero today of cash conversion cycle, Richard Branson in Virgin Airlines. This was a cool story. So he had leased a airline from Boeing that wasn't in use. And he started with just one like really old plane. And he was able to lease that initial plane because he pre-sold the tickets for it. So he didn't even have the plane yet. But he focused on selling tickets well in advance of flights in the entire time that he managed the company. And so this allowed him to finance the operations and basically lease the planes he needed to run the flights. Sometimes like he would do it months and months ahead of time, like if you're planning a vacation. And then he would run marketing campaigns and promotions that were designed to incentivize customers to book early. So he used the like cadence of how people book travel to his advantage because he didn't have like a big financial backer to go out and like buy a plane. He also leased it, which was like a smart decision at the time because he couldn't afford to buy a plane. And he was using planes that were like basically just like collecting dust somewhere because they were older. The next thing he did is he was maniacal about maximizing the aircraft utilization. So he had like the highest utilization rate in the aircraft industry. And by making sure, like I said the quote earlier, that planes don't make money on the ground, that each aircraft was pretty much always in the air, he increased the revenue generation and reduced the idle time of the assets, which optimized the cash flow. And Richard Branson was a pioneer in dynamic pricing. So I think like sports teams get a lot of credit for this today. Like if you look on StubHub or something like that, we interviewed Rich Gotham, president of the Celtics, and we did a deep dive on how dynamic pricing allows him to get the most out of fixed assets and expiring inventory. Because like a seat, you only have so many in the building, say 19,000. And if you don't get them for that game, they're going away. So he implemented dynamic pricing strategies, which allowed Virgin to adjust ticket prices based on demand and booking times. And it helped balance cash inflows by encouraging early bookings at competitive pricings while also capitalizing on higher prices that were closer to the departure dates. And finally, the creative financing piece. So Branson utilized creative financing methods such as sale and leaseback arrangements for the aircraft. It allowed him to get immediate cash from the sale of the aircraft while retaining the ability to use them through leasing agreements. So he'd buy and then lease them back, something that kind of blows my mind because I don't fully understand how it works. Like you buy the asset and then you sell it to somebody, they give you the cash back, and then you lease it from them. So he found a way around his liquidity crunch, and he used the cash conversion cycle to grow an empire. And then what's cool is he used the proceeds from Virgin to go into all these other crazy businesses. But it really all started with that first airplane that he pre-sold tickets for, and then he built an empire. What a cool dude. I wanted to give a shout out to our friends and sponsor Maxio, who also helped inspire this and inspired me to write about my cash conversion cycle trials and tribulations at my own company. The CCC is truly something that, like, if you're in the moment and you're trying to make ends meet and you realize like how much money you either have tied up in inventory or you're waiting for someone to pay you, like I'm waiting for someone to pay me right now for an ad spot, and you're like, oh wait, that's revenue technically. Like I'm doing the work now, but I don't have the cash today. Like in the moment, it really clicks and it makes sense of how you can use it for growth. So feel free to steal any of these strategies in your day to day. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back with more stories soon. Business and stories, baby. Gotta love it. Thanks for listening. Boom. Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, LOL. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.